Well, good morning. Good morning, everyone. Allow me to begin, of course, by acknowledging that we are all here today on Treaty 6 land, and to also acknowledge the Métis people of Alberta who share a very deep connection with this land. So thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. You know, when you remind people that it's been since 2008, I just immediately feel tired. I've been in that house for a long time, and boy, oh boy, have I ever seen some changes. You know, it is really, however, a pleasure for me to be here today to start my, my week at the Legislative Assembly by meeting with you folks, the Alberta Professional Firefighters and Paramedic Association, and your fall convention this morning. And of course, as you will all know, I'm also joined today by our amazing labor critic, Christina Gray. Christina, just give us a big wave. Christina has truly been an amazing advocate, not only as her time as what I would argue was the best Minister of Labour we've seen in the province of Alberta ever, but also as an incredibly hardworking critic, holding the government to account on many, many, many different fronts. Now, I hope this goes without saying, but nonetheless, it is important still to say that our party truly respects and cares for the emergency workers who give so much to and for Albertans. And I want to take just a moment to extend my very sincere gratitude to all of you who put your lives on the line for others each and every day. You all set the highest standards for professionalism, for compassion, for bravery, for self-sacrifice. And I hope you know that, of course, you have a very strong union and fearless advocates on your executive, amplifying your voices day in, day out. So a lot has actually changed in Alberta politics since we last spoke, namely the Premier, which actually means, get this, I remain the only Alberta Premier to serve a full term since Ralph Klein retired in the early 2000s. Aside from me, the last time we had a Premier serving a full term, the TV show Rescue Me had just actually started airing on HBO. That's how long it's been. I love that show, just FYI. Great show. Coincidentally, Rescue Me also appears to be the Premier's new political slogan. Who'd have thought it? But anyway, I'm going to try and keep this relatively short, which is, well, normally not too difficult for me, except for when I then end up speaking for hours and hours. So nonetheless, people will drag me out at a certain point. But I do want to talk to you just about a few really important things before we get a chance to do a little bit of backing and forthing with questions. Especially because we're heading into an election next year, which, you know, I imagine is part of what you guys have been discussing up to this point. So I want to talk a little bit about our party's priorities generally, and I want to also make a specific commitment to you as firefighters specifically. Thanks, Caitlin. So first, let's talk a little bit about our province. Right now, we're in the perfect storm of multiple different kinds of crises, all sort of colliding with each other at the same time. We have an affordability crisis in this province. Albertans are experiencing the worst inflation we have seen in 40 years. Costs have gone up on everything from groceries to gas, from food to furniture. We've all seen it. And what Albertans actually need is a government that is focused on addressing those issues, those things that matter to them. Affordable living, creating a good, resilient jobs economy, making sure we have strong schools, and of course, doing everything we can to ensure that our healthcare system is stabilized and improved. On the issue of jobs, our party has an economic plan, one that will not only lower costs for families, it will also create new jobs in energy, in new technology, in childcare, and everywhere in between. Our plan, for instance, adds value to every barrel of oil by diversifying into areas of geothermal drilling and hydrogen fuel, just as an example. We also want to bring in new tax credits that will promote investment in new companies and new sectors and develop slick new projects and new products and in technology, research, and artificial intelligence. And more than that, though, we want to invest in companies. We want to encourage small business growth. We want new tourism opportunities. We want support for arts and culture and all those things that make our province strong and allow us to continue to attract investment. We need to do all of that. And at the same time, we need to focus on making sure that our schools are there for our young people, K-12 and post-secondary. We need more teachers. We need fewer kids in the classrooms. We need classrooms that themselves teach within them a proper, modern curriculum. And we need to do that so that we continue to attract young Albertans to our province. And those young Albertans who are already here, we need to keep them here. And so we need to make sure as well that our post-secondary is accessible and affordable for our young people. And at the same time, what we need to be doing is addressing the crisis that is facing Albertans with respect to costs, and we need to lower costs. So we need to do the thing that we've been calling on the provincial government to do ever since they changed the tax code back in 2019. We need to actually change it back in order to protect everybody from the rising cost of inflation. That way, you keep more of your income as inflation goes up. We also need to take long-term action to lower classic household costs that you have no control over, like utility bills, like car insurance bills. And by doing that, we do that by cutting the fees that hit families the hardest. And you know what? Instead of using your pension like it's some kind of pawn designed for the government of the day to use in a fight against Ottawa, we will see your pension for what it is, something that must absolutely, completely, and totally always be protected and built and preserved for you. No one should be putting a hand on your retirement security or the retirement security of anybody else in this province. Because while those other folks are focused on power, our party is focused on people. And right now, we really have quite a big job ahead of us when it comes to those issues. Now, we also have a big crisis when it comes to our healthcare system. I'm sure you folks have been talking about how that impacts you already today. And we know every day we can't turn on the news or open a newspaper, if you're one of those people that still opens newspapers, or turn on your computer without seeing stories of tragedy and stress and anxiety for families across this province because of the challenges being faced within our healthcare system. Both the pandemic and the opioid crisis have put pressure on our healthcare system, just as it has across the country. However, it's been made considerably worse in this province because of a series of very bad decisions taken by the UCP since pretty much the moment they got elected. And the fact of the matter is that through that, they've put serious pressures on our families across the province and also on you, frontline providers. I hear from first responders who are exhausted and suffering as the crisis in our hospital backs up into emergency response. Firefighters are often now the first to arrive on scene, working to stabilize patients, waiting for EMS to arrive. And that wait is getting longer and longer. And I want you to know that our plan when it comes to fixing these problems is not to fire our way to some kind of better healthcare system. Quite the opposite. What we are going to do is hire. And we're going to reinvest in healthcare, and we're going to do what is necessary to make sure that people answer those ads when we post them. Care on the ground, care in your communities, that's what we need. In fact, just last week, I had the opportunity to introduce our party's Bill 1. And just to be clear, it was not some harebrained scheme to upend the economy. No, what it was a bill that was focused on improving and protecting our health care. We introduced a bill that was designed and is designed to set higher standards for health care in consultation with frontline health and emergency workers who provide that health care. So our plan will boost resources to begin the hard work of building back capacity, lowering wait times, and attracting more healthcare workers. We'll invest in mental health support, supporting Albertans and first responders to recover from trauma and anxiety. And yes, we will put more EMS vehicles on the road, responding to calls in their communities, not stuck at hospitals. Because at the end of the day, we believe fundamentally, foundationally, in the value of public health care. And so we are going to fight to protect it, and then we are going to fight to make it better than it ever has been. And this leads me to my final point, which of course is your healthcare and your health. It's no secret that firefighters, through the nature of the job, often experience injury and loss. Injuries that are physical, mental, and emotional. Your profession is one of the most respected by Albertans because you're the ones who put yourselves in danger for the sake of our loved ones, people who mean the world to someone, but quite frankly, are often total strangers to you. And the threats aren't limited to the minutes or hours when the fire is raging. Those hazards can last a lifetime. You're not just braving the flames, but you're actually braving the consequences of the courage that comes from running into those flames. And the effects can take years to show up in conditions like PTSD or, as I know you guys were just talking about, cancer. Now, a few years ago, when I last had the privilege to serve as your premier, we heard from you just how real those risks are. And we listened and we acted. We expanded presumptive coverage for emerging forms of cancer because we heard from you that it was necessary. But we also know that as we learn more, there is always more to do. And I want to talk about the fire crews and the first responders who fought the Horse River Fire in Fort McMurray in 2016. A fire so bad it was nicknamed at the time the Beast. And as your premier, I witnessed firsthand the fortitude and the fearlessness of the women and the men who were working on the front lines. And we know the fire burned 64 days, but the real damage happened in many ways in the first 6. Fort McMurray firefighters were the first to arrive and were quickly joined by firefighters from across the province. The response was fast and furious, and the intense pressure demanded firefighters to hold the ground. And this meant 6 days of limited rest, no change in gear, and hours with no access to breathing filters or self-contained breathing apparatus. And that meant firefighters were trapped in air thick with the smoke from more than 2,000 burning structures, sending up carcinogens and chemicals that latched onto your equipment, went through your clothing, onto your skin, and into your lungs for days on end. And today, some of those firefighters, your friends, your fellow Albertans, are showing signs of cancer. And yet, when they go to the WCB, it's not a given that that cancer is related to the experience I just described. Instead, they have to go through the arduous and painful process of trying to prove that they got it at work. And as many of you may know, I spent some time working on behalf of injured workers at the WCB, and I can tell you, it is a hard and sometimes dehumanizing, anxiety-provoking, onerous process to appeal a case like that to the WCB, and it just shouldn't be happening. And so the fact that you're being asked to do that is wrong. And that's why I'm very proud to commit today that if I'm fortunate enough to earn the trust of Albertans in the next election, and if I am premier as a result, which I guess one would flow from the other, anyway, one of my first acts will be to pass legislation to provide presumptive WCB coverage for all firefighters who assisted in the Fort Mac fire, from the initial evacuation right through to re-entry. And the coverage would include all current presumptive firefighter cancers, and we would add in other cancers based on the emergent science and the best practices that we are seeing in other jurisdictions, as well as remove the latency period on those cancers, and then add in respiratory illnesses that diminish lung function and prevent continuation of work. Fact of the matter is, firefighters who participated in that fire are already seeing increased rates of cancer and respiratory disease, and I strongly believe that the last thing they need to do is worry about their coverage or preparing their appeal for the WCB. Now, in addition, beyond just those firefighters who were there in Fort Mac, we also know that we need to be expanding presumptive cancer coverage for all firefighters, because we know that Alberta is falling behind on this, and the evidence shows that the risk is great. And that is also my commitment to you. And we will do everything we can to continue to support firefighters. You protect us, and so it is our job to protect you, whether that's your paycheck or your pension or your personal health. New Democrats will be in your corner. So today I want you to know our party is here for you, and we will always have your back. The Alberta NDP is rooted in fighting for the working people of this province, and we will always will be, and we will not ever back down from that commitment. Firefighters and paramedics alike are at the heart of everything that makes this province the great place that it is. And I need your help to stand up for healthy workplaces, to ensure that that happens not just for you folks, but for everybody across this province, to fight for that and to fight for a stronger economy and to defend the rights of working people. So I ask you, go back to your workplaces, get organized, talk to your co-workers, be politically active, think about running for office, just saying, stand up for your rights, fight for the Alberta you want to see, and I promise you, every step of the way, that's exactly what we will do too. So thank you very much for taking the time to invite me today and to listening to my comments this morning. Thank you so much for all that you do. Great.